Welcome back to the Data Driven Real Estate Podcast, the podcast for real estate professionals dedicated to driving business using data. I'm Aaron Norris along with Sean O'Toole with PropertyRadar, and this is episode 39. This week we have Jeff Tumbarello. He is the broker owner of Steelbridge Realty LLC. He's a data-driven real estate expert out of the Southwest Florida market and even runs the local Southwest Florida Real Estate Investors Association. He's been through everything from massive hurricanes to a huge foreclosure crisis and somehow has landed on the data-driven world of land you will not want to miss this week. Welcome back to the Data Driven Real Estate Podcast. We are really excited today to have Jeff Tumbarello with Steelbridge Realty LLC, and he's been a long-time real estate investor out of Southwest Florida who survived hurricanes, a foreclosure crisis. We're going to get into a lot of different things today. So, Jeff, welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's the Southwest Florida Real Estate Investment Association. Can you imagine trying to herd 10,000 real estate agents around?
You know what? That is actually a really great place to start. I would like to say that I know you're a data-driven, you really like data. And I've found Florida to be a very difficult place to collect data, specifically in the real estate, the realtor space, because somehow the state and the different MLSs just haven't worked together over the years, and it's been really difficult to get long-term trends. Am I seeing that correctly?
Far now, I sat on a stats committee that was fun. And of the board of realtors, it's the only committee I've ever sat on, because I'm not inspired by, let me go volunteer at a trade organization, if that makes any sense. But it was a good committee. There's some smart people on it. And FAR has started, the Florida Association of Realtors now can kind of conglomerate, I can't even say it.
Conglomerate.
Everything together. And they're coming up with their own numbers. And while I can't validate their numbers for the whole state, my database for Lee County is pretty amazing. I have a really nice spreadsheet I've built. I dump from Excel from the MLS into that, and that's how I generate my reports and views and everything. And I mean, there's some minor, very, very minor differences, but I may have an error. There's always going to be some kind of, nobody's ever going to be perfect on it. It may be them, maybe me. It's probably both. But
what is a sale, right? Like sometimes just even that's tough. And, the MLSs typically only have the listed sales, not the public record sales. So there's a lot of differences.
Yeah. FAR, they're putting out some statewide numbers that are pretty good, but for the most part, it's county by county. So public records here is pretty amazing to get at. It's a very easy place to get data, but the hard part is actually doing something with the data.
Making it
actionable. Yep, for sure.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the niche. Let's go forward to what you're doing today and maybe figure out how you even landed in Florida and how it's changed.
Well, Florida's interesting. I've been investing since, 98. I was in the mortgage business and I was doing loans for an investor. And I realized that his proceeds on the HUD were a lot more than my broker commission. So I really liked his part of the HUD, not mine. I felt like I did more than he did, trying to get these people approved with all these crazy subprime loans, and as opposed to just yelling at the handyman to make sure he painted everything. And one day I bought 5 flips with hard money, and I started on the lease.
That was your first day. You did 5 properties your first day.
I bought 5 in one day with hard money. So, and the easiest rehab was the first because we, needed to turn something. So started from there, and that entity, I think I did like 60.
Okay.
So, and had rentals and did all that. About 04, I think we founded the Southwest Florida RIA. We were going to the Broward and Dade clubs because it was just fun. And we wanted to have the meetings here. And we actually, I'll never forget, it was Woody's Barbecue had a private room, and we had to commit to 25 chicken dinners to use. So everybody kind of had to order food. So there was 4 of us doing it. So I'm like, worst case scenario, we each have to buy 6 chicken dinners and take them home if nobody shows up. It's not the end of the world. Hey kids, we're going to eat chicken for 2 days. So, but we actually had about 60 people that came to the first meeting. We had Bob Hunter, who founded the Dade RIA, came over and just talked about investing. And we've been going with that ever since. Currently, I own a retail brokerage. I invest in some stuff personally. I'm real big on notes. and defaulted notes and originating notes on seller held stuff. And we have a business called the Florida Land Team right now, where I think we've done, I think last year in the pandemic, we did probably 170 lots.
Wow.
And it's really taken off like a rocket now. And I think we've got 3 virtual assistants and 6 or 7 people in the States, all working remotely, either closers or transaction coordinators. Or it's become like it started out as we planned it hungover New Year's Day last year.
Wow.
Seriously. And we met at my office and everybody was basically needing a Bloody Mary. And we kind of said, let's try this. And we tried it. And then we actually did some things and made some money. And we've just kept scaling it. And every time we scale it, it just reacts. That's
better. That's great. I want to jump into that stuff a lot, but let's close out RIA. We mentioned RIA a few times. I don't know that everybody listening knows what a RIA is, and Real Estate Investor Association. And so it's a local group of investors. And a lot of times these are run like meetups, right? And people come and meet. Yours monthly?
We meet twice a month. We have the nighttime meeting is the 3rd Wednesday. The daytime meeting, we meet for lunch the 1st Wednesday. We don't do information product sales for the most. I mean, it's just, it's just real world stuff. Our last meeting was an attorney discussing, specific performance, what to do when your seller refuses to close. And we kind of just do a lot of topics like that. It's a lot of fun, actually. I think our membership is about 260 members, and collectively they probably own, because we actually track this metric in Lee County. And I think it's like 4,000 properties, believe it or not. It's pretty, yeah.
So you got a very seasoned group. I know a lot of the RIAs attract newbies and people who want to learn and that kind of stuff, and a handful of experienced folks, but a lot of it's new folks. But it sounds like you have a very seasoned group.
I would love to have more newbies at the meetings, because then I can pull them into my land wholesaling, because I need talent terribly.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure. Well, we always tell, right, the new folks that show up that one of the things they should do is go find a mentor. And there's 2 places we recommend doing that. One is the RIAs, and the other, a lot of your foreclosure sales are online. Our foreclosure sales are all still at the courthouse steps. We're like, go down to the foreclosure sales, because you'll meet the guys that pay cash, buy without title insurance, buy the house, they know how to do the whole deal. Like, go meet and talk to those guys, see if you can't get one of them to mentor you. But the RIAs are the other great place.
I miss foreclosure sales at the courthouse. Those were so much fun.
Yeah.
You'd bid up somebody, and then they'd come stand next to you and try and step on your foot. And I honestly think that gamesmanship is why our county pushed so hard to get them online.
Yeah. No, I've seen people throw shoes at people, and
really? It got to the point where you just all say, all right, everybody would nod. We'll partner up, the 3 of us. Stop. I'd rather make 1/3 of the money than no money just to, yeah.
At some of the salespeople were bringing cell phones. So then guys started bringing illegal cell phone jammers to keep their people from getting the bids. It got pretty nuts.
I always warn people that's one of the hardest strategies, but I have not heard that little tidbit. Wow.
Yeah. No, it's
I got to the point, if I liked the house, I would find that, particularly if a neighbor had a little kid, I would tell the little kid, if you write down like what they look like when people came, I'll give you $5. And I would have, nowadays it'd be even better with the cell phones. I'll give you $5 to take a picture of their car and who was walking around the house, so you can see who your competition is. I mean, we'd even went so far when the game cameras came out for hunting, we were thinking about finding somewhere to put a hunting game camera on the really hot foreclosure coming up, so that you can go grab the data and see who you're going to be bidding against.
Yeah, that's funny. That is definitely the toughest way to invest, but it's all online down there. Anyways,
a lot of risk too.
A lot of risk.
So much risk in that.
Yeah. No. It's. I think it attracts some of the folks that it attracts because it's like legal gambling, right? And it has all the high stakes poker kind of stuff going on with it. But back to the RIA, just you run a pretty good one, Southwest Florida. We'll get information about that for folks at the end so that they can find you and you can get more newbies showing up.
Hopefully.
Now let's jump back to sounds like you're scaling and really making it happen. How many deals are you guys doing a year?
We're looking at this year, we are probably, if we continue at the current pace, we'll be 300.
Tell me what a typical deal looks like. Walk us through that.
It's changed a lot because the market's changing a lot. Last year we were doing a lot of, because we have our own funds, so we close on some, we assign some. And we would last year we were tight margins. The market was pretty well defined. The market's really doing kind of what I call some open field running right now. And so we're at the point where I'm closing on almost everything because the margins are just that much better. And in the time it takes to close, the margins are going up even more. Case example, we had a 5-pack of lots, and they kind of get problematic because you'll have like 3 lots a developer says, hey, assign to me. And then there's always the other 2. It's kind of like, the 2 people that nobody wants to dance with at the club that, if somebody doesn't dance with them, then nobody dances. So we always end up closing on them. And this is how much our market has come up. We were 57.50 was the way it came out each lot. I had them comped that we were going to list them at 10. So we were really happy with just on the 2 bad lots of the 5-lot package to just make a couple grand after cost in and out. We were thrilled. I just put one pending for 18.9.
Wow.
So I've got another one listed at 19.9, and we'll probably end up getting 17 for it. So we're at the point where we've shifted to where I'm now closing on almost everything because the market is so good. And the time it takes the title agent to track down the corrective deed, the lots went up $3,000.
Wow.
So, well, that is a kind of a red flag a little bit, not a bad thing, but just a thing. The market's got a lot of momentum right now. So we're shifting to where we're realizing every lot we didn't close on, we probably left $2,000 to $5,000 on the table.
Yeah.
Jeff.
Sorry. I was just going to ask what the mix of land, single family residential.
It's all land. We're called the Florida Land Team. All we do is land.
Oh, okay, great.
And I've done pretty much everything there is to do in real estate. And once you have worked in land, you will never want to touch an improved property again. Because, there's no plumbing, you've got environmental concerns, you got vegetation, you got elevation, but, I've never ripped out a bush and had to repipe a lot. You know what I mean? Every time I tear out a piece of drywall, I'm fixing something else. It's just the way houses are. I got big rehab going right now on a property.
It's like peeling the onion and there's always something else underneath. Yeah.
Yeah. So the land is, I call it printing $10,000 bills. Once you find it right, the keys, you've got to have the exit. So it's like everything else. You got to buy it right, but you better have a predefined exit, whatever you're doing.
So you're cultivating relationships with your end buyer. So you've got a list of buyers going after this stuff.
We literally 3 buyers.
Wow.
We got
one developer,
one guy who flips them to somebody else, but he makes my life easy. So I know we're probably leaving a little on the table with this guy, but he buys everything we put in front of him and he closes, and he gets to make a little money too, and that's great. So
yeah. That was one thing I found, flipping was, sooner or later too, you just run out of capital at times, right? And so having a good list of folks that you can like hand stuff off to, and this is one thing I think a lot of folks miss, right? So just to keep the math simple, you buy a lot for 10,000, you sell it for 20, and let's just assume there's no cost, right? You make 10 grand. It's a really good return on investment. But if that takes you a year, right? It's a very different investment. It's actually a lower return than if you make $1,000 in one day.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
We probably are still assigning some, and I've got some markets that we're working. I'm in Lee County, which is Fort Myers, and we're working Palm Bay. We're working Northport. We've even doing some stuff in Ocala. We're actually getting ready to get just got tasked that we're going to go to 3 other states and start getting for a couple other clients. Yeah, we're going to have to set up some more land teams. I guess we're going to be the main land team or something next, set up some new companies. But our platform's really robust. We're really a tech platform that gets pointed at land. is really what we are. But you are, the assignments are your bread and butter in this game. But the key is to, you need real people that close. And honestly, the hardest part lately is keeping the sellers in the game. So,
Right.
because they've got a
Because they
million.
start seeing value go up and.
Yeah.
This
We're
one-
actually filing a specific performance lawsuit from a guy that refused to close. And normally I would not do that, but this was just so egregious. And there's a pretty big spread in the lot that we just wrote the attorney the check and go get him, dude.
Well,
There's a lot of nuance in the market. I mean, the areas that you're talking about, that's huge. And there's so many environmental things that you have to know. And some of these lots have been passed down from generation to generation. That's some good use of some public records. Can you talk a little bit about how
You
difficult?
want to talk about the coolest? We just picked up in Cape Coral when they developed it, they call them skinnies because it's an 80 by 125 lot to build. And for God knows what reason, they sold a bunch of 40 by 125s. So you have people that bought these lots that aren't buildable because every time you see a Cape Coral lot, it'll be lots 5 and 6. Well, there's some that are just lots 5. And you get people out of state that don't know any better and they don't realize they're not buying a buildable lot because it's not wide enough. Nobody has a 20-foot wide floor plan that the city will approve to go on it. Someday maybe, but not yet. We actually data mined the skinny lots and we found 2 side by side. We're about to sell that lot for 35 grand. We're in it for 15. And
Great.
it's just because it took us 10 days to match the 2 up together.
yeah. So neither person had a buildable lot, but get the 2 and you're good.
And then there was skinnies on either side of these. And once we combined ours, they're done because, unless one of the lots on the either side was to buy it and absorb it in, but they'll never build on them. And one had so many liens we couldn't buy it. And the other one was the I know what I got seller. So, and we're like, ma'am, once we combine these lots, you're done. You're never going to build on this lot, but maybe we could do something here. It's a win-win for everybody. And it was I know what I got. You ain't, okay, you win. So we combine the lots and now she's got this skinny lot she'll never build on. So at some point, whoever builds on that lot, honestly, you have kind of a free 40-foot parking lot next door that no one's ever going to build on. Not that legally you can park on their land, but when you have a pool party on Saturday, you could probably stick a couple cars on it.
Place to keep the boat. I actually, I had a lot next door to me that I tried for years to acquire and couldn't, but it was vacant. And, but I actually planted seeds. I put seeds for grass and watered it and turned it because it's all weeds and terrible, but made it like a big extra lawn.
Yeah, I live on the water and across the street from me is a half-acre lot. That's just a lot that's wooded up and I call it my parking lot. And I actually keep the trees knocked down and mow it. And because when we have a pool party, I'll put 4 or 5 cars on there for, I feel like I should be like sending them a bill for my services, but I'm trying to buy
or a check for rent.
Yeah. They paid 90 grand for it in like 04 and it's worth 25 today. I'd buy it.
I definitely want to go back. You said you started the club in 2004 and Hurricane Charlie happened in 2004, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually think it was November of 03 was our first meeting, believe it or not.
Okay. So
you were like 8, I think.
I would love to cover that really quick because when a hurricane happened, something very unusual happened in that market. Can you talk a little bit about what you experienced after that happened? It was a category 4 and it hit the market directly, right?
Yeah. Well, it was a really weird storm. Here's an interesting thing. If you become friends with a lot of firemen and you move to Florida, they all get called in when there's a storm coming. So I had a house full of firemen's wives and kids, and this was supposed to go up the coast. Seems like fun, but really wasn't. Being the only guy in this mix, it really wasn't. I was mixing a lot of margaritas because we actually had quite the party going on because it was supposed to go straight up the coast and not hit us. And then it shifted and came right down the river and my house took a direct hit. But so I went from, we had projectors going with kids playing video games and margaritas and people in the pool. It wasn't a terrible day until we got the call that, hey, it's coming up the river. You need to take shelter. Because it was a pretty nasty storm and it intensified from a 2 to a 4 and shifted right.
You're on a river, so probably no basement?
Yeah, no, now there's no basements, but it's hurricane really, it's pretty rare to destroy your home, but it'll rip the roof off is the problem, like the shingles, and then you get water in your house.
Yeah.
So, but it takes the eye wall is just a small thing. Give me an example, go off topic. I helped a guy portfolio build in 2010, and I purposely had him in 3 markets. Each one of those markets would have only taken the eye wall from a hurricane. So we split up the house buying so that if an eye wall hit Lehigh, his Cape portfolio was fine, because the eye wall is generally not that big. So your whole portfolio isn't nuked, kind of something to think about in Florida with hurricanes. If you're in one concentrated area, one eye wall could take out most of your portfolio, and then you got insurance claims, and it's not fun. But it had an interesting corollary. We were already pretty hot by then. I mean, the middle of '04 was really a growth phase, and that's when the no doc loans hit. And so we were starting to go from what I call a boom to a mania. But then the most interesting thing happened. That hurricane hit, it dumped about $1 billion of insurance money in the market. It brought in all these construction crews. So we took a little inventory out. We threw a bunch of capital in, inflationary, and then we had a huge rental demand of all these construction workers that need somewhere to live while they're working. So it kind of threw gas on a really hot fire, and then couple that with the no doc loans and everything that was going on, it turned into a mania overnight. Third quarter of '04, our average price in a quarter went up 30%.
Wow. So
and at that point, I'm at the RIA meeting, and I can remember people pitching me $330,000 houses that rented for $1,200 a month. And I'm like, buddy, that's not an investment. That's an act of lunacy. That's not, you know what I mean? Please don't do this. And then late '07, I'm having coffee with the same people, giving them a good attorney's phone number to, get out of these things.
And a therapist.
Well, and on top of that, the prices went up so high, so fast, and the rents did not keep up. Like today, the prices are going up, but the rents are keeping up to where you had a point where everybody was negative cash flow the moment they bought it.
Right.
And then, the market crashes, rents went down 25%, taxes and insurance went up. And that's why the beginning of our foreclosure crisis was 70% non-homesteaded.
I wanted to bring that up because you just mentioned some of these people were buying land with loans, just does nothing but hold the earth together for as long as you own it, for 90 to 100 grand. That you're now, the market has improved. At the bottom of the market, what was that $90,000 lot selling for?
I was picking up Lehigh lots for $1,500 that were selling for $55,000 6 years earlier.
That is painful.
Oh, it all depends on your timing. It's really amazing if you're on the right side of the trade.
Painful for them, not for you.
Yeah, but it was. Give you an example. We started the RIA, and me and one of the other principals, one of our tricks was we would acquire a lot, we'd put it in a land trust, and we would just sell the beneficial interest in the land trust. So it's less closing costs, less brain damage. Here's the title commitment where we bought it. Have your guy do a gap run, and it was just quicker and easier. Well, we sold a lot in Lehigh. We got it for like 6, sold it for 14. We're high-fiving each other. And then a year later, it's running around the room, my land trust. I know it because I made up the land trust. And it was 50, and somebody bought it. And I looked at the other guy. I'm like, we should have just paid the taxes for a year. Wow. So I'm like, at the time we were brilliant. And, a year later, we were the dumbest people I met because we didn't pay the taxes for $300 and just wait for a year.
Everybody that was flipping from 09 to whatever, 13 wishes they'd kept everything they flipped.
Yeah, it got to where it was just purely a mania. I mean, right now we're in a boom market. The whole country is. There's a difference between, the tulip bulbs, the South Seas Trading Company, the .com stocks from 2000 and just a bull run. There's a delineation when it just completely leaves intrinsic value. But right now, I think what's saving us is the fact that everything's still tied to wages. The mortgages are. So as long as they keep that, we're okay. I mean, I ran numbers, and I'm big on math. I mean, Aaron and I just completely geeked out over breakfast recently over doing some math, but like our cash percentage for this February versus last February, it actually went up. So, there's people trying to scream that it's 2005 when the cash percentage was almost 36% of the sales were all cash. And above $500,000, it's significantly higher. So you really have just and it's something when you look at Southwest Florida, like maybe 5% of the sales in 05 were cash. By the time the market corrects in say 09, at least 75% of the sales were cash. So we went from being probably one of the most over leveraged markets in the country with us, Arizona and say Scottsdale, were probably the most over leveraged markets in the country, to when we washed out all of that unsustainability, it was replaced with equity. So we've went to becoming one of the more free and clear markets in the country now, as far as equity wise.
Right.
Man, well, okay. So I wanted to cover that because land is a very interesting asset class. I don't know, some would consider it really risky, and unless you build on it. So are you land banking at all? Are you sitting on a lot of stuff?
There's two reasons you buy land. You're either for speculation or to use it. And I always say, we teach this at the RIA. The one thing I watch in this market is the Cape land market, because land represents hope. That lot was 1,500 because there wasn't much hope. That lot was 65,000 because there was just insane euphoria. So, and there really wasn't any difference. The land hadn't changed.
Right.
Just the people changed. So land represents hope. And there's two reasons you buy it. Well, there's other reasons. You can buy things in just a store of value. I have an investor friend who only buys land with basically, he makes a lot of money. He buys land with, after his reserves, because his tax situation, depreciating a rental would be bad for him. So he has a very semi-unique life. So for him, the depreciation doesn't work for him, according to his accountant. So he buys land as a store of value so he doesn't have to depreciate it. And then his joke is he buys land wherever he vacations, so he calls it all business trips.
Yeah. What about, the hard part with land banking land, obviously, is that you have expense without income. Mm-hmm. So that you've got, a lot of people complain about gold because gold doesn't have any income, right? And so you're kind of constantly losing value, versus if you have a store of value that has some return on investment. So there's no return on investment on land. So how do you answer that?
Well, ultimately it's not I don't consider things an investment when you're working off gains. And the way I work, I put $1 here, I get 7 cents a year. I call that investment.
Totally.
Okay, if I put $1 down and my hope is to get $1.25 someday, that's a trade. So land, for the most part, unless you're putting it to use, and there are ways to actually make money on land. I'm a member of a fraternal organization, and we just got approached to put a cellular tower next to our lodge. That's an investment. Totally. So there are other ways you can do that. I have
boards, cell towers, cattle grazing. There are quite a few.
Well, you also have the fireworks and Christmas tree guys.
Yeah.
If you buy a good corner, typically you put a saw pole on it, for temporary power. And I have a friend who, talk about a deal. He stole it in 09, and then he sold 20 feet off the front of the DOT for a stupid number. It's a decent corner in Lehigh. And now he's about to sell 20 feet off the left-hand side to the DOT for a rather stupid number. And he's still got enough to develop, but he's got the fireworks guys that are there for New Year's Eve, 4th of July. He's got the Christmas tree guy. He actually makes a pretty decent little return. And on the top of that, he gets a free Christmas tree.
He's doing pumpkins this fall. He's got it okay.
Food trucks. There's food truck guy, and I called him. I'm like, so how much a taco guy giving you? He just lunch. He lets the guy park. He knows him, but there are utilities to land, but land's generally more of a trade. But like you brought up gold, that's a really good analogy. But no sane person would have 100% of their portfolio in gold or land. It's a good little insurance hedge.
Yeah.
It's a cyclical market-based insurance hedge, but it's a good little insurance hedge.
Can In public records, can you share maybe a little bit of insight into the leads that you really like? Is it somebody who's owned a piece of land for 60 years? It's somebody licking their wounds from 2006 who bought it for 90 grand? Like, what gets you excited?
I used to only do out of state people, and I've come to the conclusion I just send everybody something.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I call it vintage based marketing too. Like you get this people that bought in these years and that year, but landowners are probably the most interesting sellers on the planet because there's so many people that owning a piece of land for them is part of almost their makeup. You know, they go to cocktail parties and they're like, yeah, I have this lot in Florida. And it's just kind of part of their makeup. It really is.
Right.
And so they get separation anxiety about selling their lot in Florida that they'll never build on and some have never seen.
Right.
But it's just kind of part of, hey, I got land in Florida. I got something going for me. Believe it or not, there's a lot of them. And then on top of that, it's all the right timing. Timing is everything. And really to time right, you need to be on scale for people. You just need to be touching. We used to do very particular vintages. I'm now hitting just basically 33976 and Lehigh, everybody in it.
Do you time your marketing for when the property tax bill hits? Because that's when people go, God, do I really want this anymore? That's one thing that I've found works well for land.
See, I look at it differently. For us, our approach is we market constantly 24/7 every day. We have a metrics in our dashboard of how many leads came in today. And if it's under 25, it's in the red. So life is about building a database.
Yeah,
that's really your entire business. We're at the point, I think we've got 10,000 people in the areas we work that have responded and
Wow.
we've talked to. So my plan is someday to have that be every piece of land on planet Earth. So when we're and then I'm going to talk to Elon about hitting Mars once we totally get that going. But it's all about the database. We do better when the tax bills come out. We do better right after the first of the year. But there's people that are ready to sell land for the transmission drops out of their car. Their daughter just informed them. She said yes to that young man on his knee. There's a lot of reasons that people suddenly need some capital. And if you're not in front of them and talking to them, the old time, you mail here, mail there. It's the most efficient. But we live in a 24/7 interconnected world, and it's so easy to market now that there's no reason not to never. I always say always be closing. It's really should be ABM, always be marketing.
Always be marketing. So on that, direct mail, I assume, is part of it. Mm-hmm. Cold calling?
Yeah, it's not the funnest.
Yeah. Email?
No.
No, you're not doing
Once
email?
they opt in and they talk to us, we email them. But cold email, no.
No cold email. Custom audience?
Yeah, some. Yes, no. I'm really good with the social media stuff, so I'm not going to give out a whole lot of that. But yes, we do that.
Fair enough.
In theory, we might do that. Yes.
Any that I missed?
Oh, well, SMS they're really about to make that go away.
Yeah, I agree.
They're really working on SMS to go away. Believe it or not, mail pays probably the biggest dividends because while it's more expensive, it is a physical piece of the world that they stick in a drawer.
What I always say is when you think about impressions, think about the number of ads scrolling by in your browser and stuff every day, right? And everybody's like, well, people just throw away direct mail. But think about that for a minute. How long does it take you? You got to get that piece of mail out of the mailbox where you might see it. You got to sort it where you're going to see it. You've got to decide you're going to put it in the trash can where you're feeling it, picking up, and you're putting it in the trash can. That's way more of an impression than any online ad, even if it's just on the way to the trash can.
Well, a lot of the lot owners are older too, so they read their mail. I think when the millennials and younger are the biggest percentage of lot owners, direct mail will probably be useless.
I will tell you I disagree. Because having a 17 and an 18-year-old, they're fascinated by mail.
Really?
Yeah. They like to pick. My son was like, oh, yeah, I'll pick up the mail. And he's like, oh, Dad, you got a platinum, whatever card offer. I'm like, dude,
Do you let your kids have a phone, though, is the question.
They do.
Now the mail, like I own a brokerage too, and when we mail in predominantly 55 and up areas, we get double the response rate. So generally, I find it in any asset class that has like an older demographic that owns it, your direct mail just trends better. But direct mail in and of itself is useless. It needs to be multiple touches accompanied by every bit of electronic, anything you can do to back it up and get in front of them. It's, I think about how easy we had it in 2004 for marketing, because all you did was mail some postcards and maybe do a newspaper ad or a shopper ad. And at that point, there was some online ads, but they weren't really as prevalent. It was kind of like an arcane art too. But when I really look at marketing today, it is complex. Like the ad sets that I use are 3 to 5 deep down. It's really complex, and they've taken away a lot of the ability. Like that whole hack the election with Facebook thing actually cost me a lot of money because I lost the ability to upload some custom audiences. I mean, we at one point had figured out a way to, when I would get something in a neighborhood, I had a custom audience from public records of just the people in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I would spend like $8 to fully expose an asset to the people that are most likely to know somebody to want to buy it. The biggest thing I'm mad about the whole thing, I'm not to get into any kind of partisan politics, but the aftermath of that raised my advertising cost online about 300% because I went from very kind of targeted laser things to broad-based everything.
Now, because you're in land, you're not feeling probably yet the impacts of something like Sunday, and I don't think Sunday's in your market. But they're basically the open door on the investor side, or Zillow offers, or those OfferPad, that kind of thing. And we're seeing the same thing where they're coming into a market and they have so much money, capital that they've raised to spend. It's pushing up the advertising cost dramatically for our customers. You probably aren't feeling that yet from any kind of institutional players.
There's a whole lot of us. There's 2 other groups that are exactly what we do in town.
Yeah.
Both members of the RIA too.
So you're pushing up each other's costs.
Yeah, no, some people respond to ultimately what this all boils down to, and why I'm never worried about iBuyers or anything. It's all about your level of talent, your level of focus. And the most important thing is for a human being to either sit in front of another human being or have a phone conversation that is relevant and that you have some cognizance about it. Because, we did a wonderful attempt at having VAs close people.
Yeah.
It did not work.
Yeah.
And it was a good experiment, but it just, and it's not even the talent. The one lady in particular is very talented, but there's just such a difference barrier of not understanding what Publix means for a Cape Coral lot that she'll probably never know. Even if we explained it to her, it doesn't correlate well. So while all the technology platforms and all that in the world, my experience is they can't close well.
All right. Share with us
that's what the game is. A lot of people blame Zillow and blame iBuyers, and they really, the only competition you have is you.
We always like to say change is the only constant, and change is where all opportunity comes from. And so, if you can't roll with that change and deal with that change, you're just shutting yourself down to opportunity. So it sounds like you're pretty good at rolling with change.
In Palm Bay, we hit that market. We got amazing response rates. And somebody came, and at the time, lots were retail 12 to 15. Some group mailed everybody an offer for $25,000, and with the intent, I think, to retrade them. But in the meantime, it killed our marketing because we're writing offers and they're going, hey, and they even sent us some of the letters that were an offer. But what we did is we jumped in and we waited for that 30 days when we knew they were never going to close. And then guess what? And one of our guys on the phone, his pitch is, look, I'm the easy girl at prom. I'm a sure thing. So it's literally what he says to people, and they sign. They love it. They think it's the funniest thing on the planet. It's all about how you say it. And so we got to use we're the easy prom date. We're a sure thing. So, you know, do you want to keep dreaming or do you want to have a fun prom?
Yeah.
And that was literally, and we got a bunch of deals out of that by just backing off. We kind of shut down the marketing. We let that take place because, you know, math means things. If a lot is $10,000, unless there is BlackRock knows something we don't and is gobbling up a whole market, and this was obviously not BlackRock in its marketing, that somebody sold these people a course that said, you know, retrade them and then you'll, you know, that kind of thing. And the beauty is they put out a lot of mail. And while it disrupted our initial run, in 30 days, we were slaying them.
That's great.
It is great.
Walk us through what, you know, you're scaling up, you're adding people. What does your team look like? What are the key people that you need to help you scale?
That's really hard because we've got probably the most eclectic group of human beings on the planet. So, I mean, there is no model.
Their titles, are they like people who are just focused on closing and other people
we
who are
have
focused on
essentially
marketing?
we have people that kind of do the workup. Then we have closers. We have one lady that all she does, she is extremely OCD, and all she does is manage our transactions. And she will figure out if the title company misspelled something in the email, because that's her level of OCD, which is exactly who you want managing your transactions and, you know, reviewing your HUDs. We've got some VAs that actually work just our CRM. You know, we kind of have a little bit of everything. It's a pretty big scaled up with very specific role players. And honestly, as we identify friction points, we add people to fix the friction.
Yeah.
Because the biggest thing, you know, you're scaling when there's friction, because nobody scales and you know, it's not wine and roses scaling. It's, you know, things come up, you get overwhelmed. It's just, it's business. And, you know, if you haven't had an argument with your partner, you're probably not busy enough. You know, it's just the way it is. It's just the way business is done. You know what I mean? And you get human beings and you're talking to each other a lot. And it's just the way it is. But yeah, we basically have role players. We kind of have a schematic of our process, and we have people. And then the hardest thing for us is salespeople, because salespeople are such a rare breed, like real closers. I mean, right. I'm not talking somebody to read from a script, a real life closer. And like, we have one girl who's amazing, and she'll call me and she talks for like 30 minutes about like, what do you think this lot in Lehigh's worth? And it dawned on me at the end of one of the calls, I'm like, that's why she's so amazing, because I'm on the phone and we're talking about her kids and my kids and this and that music video. But by the end of it, you know what I mean? You're completely at ease, and, you know, she's just really good at it. And she actually enjoys talking to people. And, you know, that is probably our hardest thing, because we have another guy who only does really high volume deals, but he could probably do a lot more business if he wasn't so curt about everything. You know what I mean? I'm almost ready to somehow have a grading system in our leads. Yeah. You know, the Chatty Cathys go to this one.
Lead scoring. Because the busy
guys go to this guy. You know what I mean?
The busy professional probably prefers the curt, fast to the point guy, right?
Yeah, it could be.
And, you know, grandma who hasn't talked to anybody in 2 months, you know, her kids aren't calling. She's probably loves this other gal.
Yeah, no, she'll talk. She likes to talk, and she slays it. She's picked up like a 13 pack of lots from a guy that was just a huge rainmaker.
Wow. Oh, that's cool.
And the VAs you're just having the background, you said working on CRM stuff and research?
They do everything.
Data cleanup.
I mean, the VAs are like, we have a VA with the RIA. I have VAs with my brokerage. I have VAs in every business. There's certain things that VAs actually do better than us.
I will have to tell you, I'm on your marketing for your club, and you do a great job. I get your voicemail drops. I get your emails. You've really got it dialed in. So your team does a really good job.
VAs are super interesting to all of our folks. Give us a list of things that you think VAs are exceptional at, where you think they're even better than, you know, what you're able to find talent locally for.
Well, VAs don't, believe it or not, make as many mistakes as people in America. Right. And if you tell them to do A, B, and C, they will do A, B, and C, as opposed to try and innovate. You know what I mean? If they have a better way to do it, they will. But, it's very by
Better
the
rule
book Marine,
followers.
so I kind of respect by the books.
Yeah.
And
We
they're very
Americans, we're
by
not good rule followers.
Yeah, they don't. And that's the amazing part is if, hey, I need you to click this button 65 times, your average American is going to groan and complain and whine the entire time they click the button 65 times to where, first of all, they're in another country. So you don't know. That's another thing I love about VAs is that if they're having a bad day, you really don't know because they're in the Philippines, they're in India. They don't really, you know what I mean? If she's having a really bad day, as long as all the tasks got clicked, it's fine. And, they do a lot of, but VA should be doing things that you basically what makes you money and what makes you money you should be doing the actual, what I call moments of truth. Everything else should be set up. So in my opinion.
Okay. Is there any opportunity I know the area just had FEMA go through and update all the flood zone maps. Would you take on that point of data in your marketing and say, hey, your, flood zone just changed. You might have a challenge with selling or I don't know.
Well, let me share something with you. In downtown Fort Myers, there was a pretty well-esteemed building that was for sale. And they changed the FEMA map so that a little sliver of the building came into a flood zone and it killed a really good deal. So, that the FEMA maps can be in either direction. And generally the FEMA maps are just more of a negative event, in my opinion, here in Florida than they are anything else. We do notice them. Almost every builder wants flood zone X. It's that they just don't, because the problem when you get into the other flood zones, you're bringing in more fill. More fill is a much bigger cost. On lots, it's elevation and vegetation are your two biggest things to pay attention to, because when you're building a home, the lot clearing and the fill dirt are two variables that can be tough. And if you're ever going to do land, you need to get pretty good at figuring that out. But when you're doing that kind of stuff, yeah, if something suddenly became flood zone X, yeah, I'd be all over that.
Yeah, it's usually not going that way, is it?
Yeah, it generally goes the opposite direction.
Right, because all of Florida is sinking, right?
Yeah, if you listen, but the scary part, there really are people that believe all this stuff on the internet, like the world is flat. I mean, it's not a joke.
Yeah, it probably is not something to make fun of.
Yeah. We had a seller who was a flat earther, and we used to just listen to the calls because he would just continually bring stuff up like that. And I almost wanted to call him, and that's not really what I do, and I almost wanted to call him just to hear it.
Yeah.
So, have a couple glasses of wine and call this guy and just hear what he has to say.
Now, you mentioned CRM. Do you have a favorite one that you recommend?
No, we're always trying to find the next better one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other?
No, I mean, we use multiple CRMs for different things, some for marketing, some for follow-up, some for this, but we are always looking for a better product. I was almost ready to buy my own or build our own. And so I talked to one of my mentors and he brought up a point. He goes, when you build your own platform, when it breaks, there's nobody to fix it but you. It really is a pretty wow moment. And then you're also married mentally to this thing you built that's now kind of part of you, and it'll prevent you from pivoting. So yeah, we're very agnostic when it comes to CRMs, whatever works the best. If they have, works the best in cost relation, there's some great CRMs, but to spend, $4,000 a month to use a CRM is insane. And there's some out there that once you add the users that hit that level.
Oh, for sure.
Yep. Sure. Is there any other technology stack that you are really enjoying this year?
Well, skip tracing is a lot of fun because they seem to just flip back and forth. Some days they're good, some days they're bad. Really, it's just more integrations. I mean, the greatest gift to the world since the Gutenberg printing press is Zapier. So, I mean, there's few things that bind the world together better than Zapier.
Yeah.
So,
we've got a lot of customers that are that love the fact that they can now feed their CRMs and marketing automation tools with public records directly from our systems through Zapier. And we're the only ones who do that.
Yeah, there's some other clones that are out there that we haven't tried yet. But I mean, without Zapier, this would be a lot tougher to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I was the other day, like the Southwest Florida RIA, we do some marketing. It's very rudimentary. It's not nearly on the level of what we do. And like, I'll have a video and then, retarget with another video, and then there's a lead ad. But then I was just looking at what happens on the lead ad. Zapier takes it from Facebook. The RIA uses Podio, so that it takes it into Podio, then adds it to MailChimp, then adds it to another service I use for some additional retargeting.
Right.
So it's pretty amazing, and it costs, I think we do $20 a month.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly want to call them up and say, I don't know, you guys are kind of selling yourselves a little short, guys.
Don't.
We can help you spend more money with them.
Yeah, no, I would love to talk to you guys about that. We're always looking for a better way to do it. I'd had lunch with a guy who did what I did before, and he's now worth a lot of money as a result of what we're doing. And I came out of it, because there's nothing like the insight of having done something.
Right.
Because at the time, what appears to you isn't what really is. Generally in business, in hindsight, well, we should have did this. Like in hindsight, you asked about the targeted lists. In hindsight, I should have been hitting every person. I should have just taken zip codes and worked every zip code instead of trying to pull out these special people that,
I would argue though, you still have a targeted list, right? Because you're hitting lots, you're not hitting every property, right? You're not hitting residential properties.
I'm at the point, if you have land in the market we want, you're getting marketing.
Right.
There's no reason not to.
Commercial as well as residential?
No, commercial's tough.
See, so you're targeting.
You're targeting.
Yeah. Well, see, when you say target, I'm thinking from Minnesota who bought 5 to 10 years ago.
Yeah, I do think though that, to some degree, I think, you're targeting to get down to the product you want and then mailing to everybody, which is great. But I do think that, and this just becomes amount of time that you have, like the person who bought a year ago versus the person who had it for 10 years, right? The person who's 70 versus the person who's 30, like those people have different wants and needs, and you could probably improve your messaging and get better. You could probably improve your response rates by breaking.
Well, it's a lot easier to buy a lot for 7,000 that they bought for 4 than to buy a lot for 7,000 that they bought for 85.
Yeah, so that understanding those things too, right? Like so we like to talk about that as segmenting. So you start with that big list, and then you segment it into these smaller things. So that, the guy who is 85, it's like, hey, your lot's probably never going back to 85. It's a different message than the guy who bought it for 4 and he's going to get a double.
Yeah. Well, the lot for 85 are fun. And the interesting thing is probates on land don't seem to be just as viable. I just don't, like, I did well with improved properties with probates. With probate, we tried it. It's just not, it's for some reason not as viable.
Yeah.
Well, we're about out of time. What are you excited about in 2021? You're in the middle of a hot market. It's scalding hot in Florida overall. Some people are worried, and you see the headlines, it's going to bust. How are you feeling about the market?
I drill deep into the market. Like for the Cape land market, I have a spreadsheet that does year over year closed sales and then blends in what's pending and then blends in what's active based on pricing. And I call it momentum. Momentum, basically it's probably trend lines carrying stuff forward of where it's going to end up. But I'm watching all of the markets. What you'll know when I shut down the Florida land team will be probably when we, not I, there's a few of us doing it. But when we pivot out of the Florida land team is probably when you'll know, because we've got probably the best data sets around. I'm not saying I'm the best, but we probably have the best data sets, and we have 2 of us in this that are extremely analytical. So it's not just me. There's at least 2 opinions on everything. But we're not there yet. And this is a different driver. Like you've got from 2000 to 2025, a lot of retirees coming here. And then on top of that, I'm seeing a modality that I've never seen before. In my brokerage, I have a retail brokerage, and we're selling to 40-year-olds that are going to snowbird because they can now remotely work here in the winter, which that I've never seen in mass. So I've done 3 of those. Our company sold 3 of those now recently. And then I'm also seeing the biggest consumers in America by a percentage are Gen Z. And they, like the millennials, were late bloomers because they kind of grew up with this backdrop of a bad economy. Gen Z's never seen a bad time that they really remember. So they're a little more, they're a lot more bullish. Like I kind of, you look at a generation and, you know, they either grew up in a bull or a bear backdrop. Like Gen X, we grew up in kind of a bear backdrop. So we're kind of a little always got a bearish lens to things because, you know.
My son's Gen Z and he called me to pitch me on GameStop. So yes, bearish. I mean, bullish.
You know what though? I made money on GameStop. You made 60% on what I put in it.
I love it.
You know what's cool about GameStop is that a whole younger generation realized that you can actually make money on your phone and not just play things and watch things.
True.
Both of my sons are 22 and 24 and in college, and all we talk about is Robinhood now.
Yeah.
Every day they call to tell me what stock they bought. So, I mean, as a father, I'm excited that they go to college, they have jobs, but they're also spending some of their spare time in trying to figure out how to make money.
It's crazy how big it is in the college scene. Like it's a little scary though with some of the what's the word? The funding, the
crowdfunding.
No. Where they let you trade it's debt
On margin.
Oh, margin. Thank you.
Yeah.
If you the margin stuff, I don't know that you should be giving 20-year-old kids in college margin to be trading GameStop with.
Yeah.
That is a little scary.
You never know. There's always the rush it, and then you'll hear about the bad ones. But when you look at our market, Gen Z is coming on strong. So I see 2 primary drivers right now. There's Gen Z and some of the millennials buying their first homes. And then you've got wealthy to-do baby boomers coming down here. And between the two, excuse me, they're driving both ends of the market. You've got the entry-level housing market is insane. Good luck finding a cheap home.
Yeah.
But also good luck finding value on a $700,000 waterfront home too. You're not stealing that either.
Right.
But then again,
this is fun.
You guys out of California, I talked to a guy today who was telling me about a $700,000 California house as compared to, he was telling me about a $700,000 California house that is a 1,500 square foot 3-2 with a pool. And I'm like, well, that here would be 4,000 square feet with a water view and a pool, and probably a lot. And it was pretty basic. Like you need to go to Home Depot and buy some new cabinet kind of finishes. And, you don't have to do much to move into this house and start enjoying life. So it's, there's so much capital coming from the West Coast to this area right now that it's insane.
Well, Jeff, if people wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way to follow you?
It's a really good question, actually.
Let's start with the RIA. How do they find the RIA?
The RIA's website is swflreia.com. There's also a Facebook page for the Southwest Florida RIA. I think we have about 30,000 followers, believe it or not. For me personally, honestly, give me a call. My number is 239-671-8248. I'm down to talk to anybody. If you have a question, I started out in this business and I really had no clue what I was doing. And I'm only alive because I had some amazing mentors who drew no value from helping me. So I don't understand why one guy has spent so much time saving me from myself, one of my mentors. So I feel kind of duty bound to repay that. With that said, I'm probably not going to be your full-time mentor, but if you got questions, if you need some help with something, want somebody to bounce something off of, give me a call.
Thanks, Jeff.
Before you call him to ask for mentoring, go online and do a little research on how to ask for a mentor, what to expect from a mentor, there's stuff on you when you ask people to mentor you And you should understand what that is, because otherwise Jeff's probably going to stop returning your calls. So do that research before you call Jeff, please.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you for listening to the Data Driven Real Estate Podcast. You can find show notes and links to some of the resources mentioned in the show at datadrivenrealestate.com. Click that Join the Community, and you'll be forwarded to the Property Radar community, where you can ask questions about the current show and even see upcoming guests and ask questions there. We'd love to engage with you in the community, so check it out. Please don't forget to like, favorite, subscribe, and share on your favorite platform where you're listening to the show. It helps us out a great deal. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.